Hey, I'm Jake. In this video, we're going to continue with our Making a Website series, where in the past few videos, we went from creating a static website just using HTML and CSS files to upgrading it to use Flask, to then using different templates within Flask and actually allowing us to get values from a request form. Now, in this video, we are going to make it not only that we get our values from the request form, but that we also actually save these values to a database. That's right, we're doing some database work in this video. So without further ado, let's just get into it. All right, so to start off, we're going to add one extra import from Flask, and this is going to be called Flash. Flash is going to allow us to send messages, or basically add messages to a queue that we can then render within HTML. So we're not going to do that quite yet, but we're going to update our register page eventually to be able to show those messages. So we'll get to that in a second. So next thing we're going to import is import RE. RE stands for regular expression. We're not going to really dive too much into what regular expressions do or how they work. If you want a video on that, let me know down below and I could definitely make one. Regular expressions are extremely powerful, but they can be a little bit confusing to get right. The next thing we're going to do is import SQLite 3. Import SQLite 3. Now, SQLite 3 should come by default with your Python version. So if that's not the case, then just Google SQLite 3 and whatever your Python version is, and you maybe have to install it through pip, but I don't think you will because I believe it should come with your Python version. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. If not, drop a comment down below and I can see if I can help you. All right, the next thing we're going to do is update our app slightly by saying app.secretKey, and then we're just going to pass in some super secret key. Now, this ideally should actually be secret, but because we're not actually going to be hosting this with this super secret key, it's totally fine to just have it be some kind of arbitrary value here. The next thing we're going to do is define a function that is going to initialize our database. We're going to call it initDB, and then right now we're just going to pass for it. We are then going to call this before we start our actual app here. Next, we're going to go and actually implement this initDB. I'm just going to paste in some of the code here, and then I'll go over what each of the lines is doing. All right, so if you've never done anything with SQL before, you can check out this video right up here where I go over some of the basics of SQL and why it can be super powerful. If you ever want to do things with databases, you're probably going to use SQL or maybe some kind of non-relational database like MongoDB or CockroachDB or something like that. Honestly, everything is really great. Like all options are, there's not really a super bad option. It's just sometimes some might be better for others, for different use cases. In this case, we're just going to use SQLite 3 because it's super lightweight, comes by default, again, with Python, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's easy. So here we go. The first thing we're doing here is creating a connection, and we're connecting to SQLite3.connect, and we're passing in this users.db. Now, what this is going to do is if there is a users.db file within here, within our video 4, it is going to actually just reference that file, because with SQLite 3, it basically creates a database file within whatever directory you're referencing it from, and you can just use that to connect to it, which is really great. That means it's just a local database, nothing to worry about. Next, we are going to create a cursor, and the cursor is going to allow us to execute something within our database. So we're doing connection.cursor. Then we're going to do cursor.execute, and we're going to call this query here. And this query is saying create a table if it does not exist, or if not exists, the users table. And in this table, we're going to have an ID, which is going to be an integer, which is going to be a primary key. And then we're going to have a username where the text is unique and not null, meaning nobody else can have the same username, and it's required, so it's not null. And then a password, which is also a form of text. Text you can kind of think of like a string. And it is also not null. Great. So now we have our This is going to execute this and actually create the table. If it already exists, because of this if not exists, it's just going to skip it and just say, all right, the table already exists. I'm not going to do anything. Then it's going to commit this connection because it now has this query kind of attached to it. And when it commits it, it's actually going to run it. Then we're going to do connection.close to close the connection. That's basically, so this is committing it and then this is closing it. You always want to make sure you close your connection. Otherwise, there's a chance that you have a connection that's just kind of open needlessly. And then anytime this was run, which this is only run when our server started, but if there was some instance, you want to make sure it's closed. So just be mindful of that. All right, awesome. So if we go ahead and run this, Flask run, we can see that nothing's really changed, right? Because we're not really doing anything different. If we go to the actual website, we can see we can still go to register. If we type in Jake and test, we can click that and we still go back here, and we still get that in our output, but we're still not actually doing anything with it. So let's update it so we actually do something. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna paste in these two small lines here. Now, what this is gonna do is it's gonna say if the regex, or if the username does not match this regex, then we are going to add this to Flash. So let me go over what this is really saying. So from the start of the string, it needs to have characters between small a to z, or a big A to Z, or a 0 to 9, and then until the end of the string. So basically it's saying that if the string contains any characters outside of the alphabet or 0 to 9, then it doesn't match. So that's a case where we want to ensure that, the usernames don't have exclamation marks or question marks or something like that. That's what this is doing here. Next, we are going to go ahead and have this flash happen. Now, flash, as I mentioned previously, is a way to convey messages to a user, but it's kind of doing it during the rendering of the page. So let's go ahead and update our register.html to actually show this. So if we do this here, we're going to get rid of this actually, just for a second, and we're going to go to register.html. Now, what we're going to do is right under register here, we're going to paste in this code here. So what we have here, this is probably going to, when I save it, jump back over because formatting is fun. Oh, it didn't. Great. But what this is doing is for messages in get flashed messages, which is something that the Flask rendering engine allows you to do. It also, if we go back to here, you can actually see that get flashed messages is another thing that it's another function that's available to us. But it's basically going to get all of the messages for that. And then for each of them, we're going to print it out within a new, I don't know why we have an H1 here. This should be a P. Within a new paragraph. So now we are going to print that message, and then we're going to end the for loop. So for every message that is within this flash, then we're going to do that. Now, flash, again, is this. So it means every time we have added something to this flash, or we've called flash, it's kind of added to this list, and then when we call the get for get flashed messages, then we are actually going to get all of them since the last time we got them for this request. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we do this, and we'll put in a bad username. So let's go back to our website, register, and then let's do test ! And just something like that, and then click register. Now you can see that we reloaded our page effectively, but now we can see this message, username must contain only letters and numbers. And if we refresh, actually I can't refresh, refreshing is bad because it's gonna just put that again, but there we go. If we go back to the register page, it is no longer there. So that's how we can use flashed messages to kind of display some kind of error state really easily and cleanly. All right, now maybe we want to ensure that the user has a password that is of a given length. So let's say if the length of the password is less than 6, then we are going to flash again. So we're going to flash password must be at least 6 characters long. Perfect. So now we can again go and test this. If we do Jake 123 register, password must be at least 6 characters long. So we can see that our password was not valid, so we should probably update that. Awesome. Now, just like we had before, we actually were going to have it redirect to the home page. But we want to make sure that that only happens if the user has actually registered properly. So now we're going to do else, and then within this else, we are going to try to add the user to the database. So we're going to use a try block, and then here we'll do accept. Specifically, we're going to do an SQLite 3.integrity error. And this basically means that if there have been duplicates, so if the username or the password, if the username is not unique, then we're going to hit this error here. So all we want to do then is just do flash username already exists. So this might be something that you maybe don't want to do. You could just say username is invalid or something like that. But username already exists is probably fine, at least for us. So again, accept is when an error actually happens. But if an error doesn't happen, we are going to try to do all of this. And if it doesn't happen, then we're good. So what we're doing here is we are going to say, we're going to create a connection, again, connecting to our database. We are going to create a cursor, and then we're going to insert into the users table. And we're going to insert the username and the password with the values of ? which are then filled out by this here. Then we are going to commit that, close that, and then flash registration successful. And then we're going to redirect to the home page. Awesome. So if we go ahead and try this out, we can now see that if we do Jake and then test, 1, 2, 3, because it needs to be at least 6 characters, then we can click register, and ta-da, we are now back on our home page. So one thing I did notice is that when I was just trying this, I actually needed to move this initdb up here to just happen right after. So if you encountered some kind of issue saying that the users table didn't exist, try moving this here. You might say like, well, why don't you just put this outside of a function? And you could, but having it within a function makes it really clean because it's really obvious what is happening when it's within a function. Awesome. So we have now registered a user to our website. That is all for this video, but in the next video, we are going to actually allow a user to log in and maintain a state, a session is what it's called, for that user when they are on our site. So if you want to see that video, consider subscribing down below and clicking that bell so you'll be notified when we post that next. Have a great day. Bye.